program, and Dan Orlovsky, you said so many of them. What is the first thing to say about this today?
Carson Wentz is broken. The Philadelphia Eagles have broken him. And if you look at the two most important people in their organization when it comes to power, it's their general manager and their head coach. And their general manager, within the same year, gave Carson Wentz the biggest guaranteed contract ever, and then drafted a guy in the second round. So there's a seed of doubt planted in Carson Wentz's mind. And then the head coach, Doug Peterson, yesterday decides to go, okay, it's time for Jalen Hurts, which is probably the right decision. And then he leaves him in for the rest of the game. And now you've got another seed of doubt. Does my general manager believe in me? Not as much as I think. Does my head coach believe in me? Not as much as I think. And that has broken Carson Wentz. And I always use this saying, don't give up what you really want for what you want right now. They really want Carson Wentz to be their franchise quarterback, but they want to win games right now. That's why I think they have to start Jalen Hurts next week. I don't think you can walk into your locker room and not play him because your quarterback is completely mentally broken, and the Eagles did it themselves.
RC, Jalen Hurts or Carson Wentz next week? Which direction should they go?
It's Jalen Hurts. Doug Peterson has absolutely no choice. Doug Peterson was standing at the top of the cliff, and Carson Wentz has been beating him down that cliff to the edge, and he was about to fall over. He had to make a decision. He had to say something to his team that this type of play, no matter the position, no matter the contract, no matter the name, is unacceptable. And so you put Jalen Hurts in the game, and they said there was no plan. Carson Wentz didn't necessarily know how long he was going to play, but in the third quarter, you get the best pass of the game, and it's from your backup quarterback. He is Jalen Reagor, who we've been looking for all year, and now you have this huge play. And then you go into the fourth quarter, and it's 4th and 18, and I know it's kind of a time where you're trying to figure out how can we just get this game close, and he throws a touchdown. The football had touch on it. He was accurate. He created plays with his legs. He looked like the more poised, experienced, confident quarterback yesterday. And so Doug Peterson, you start him. And if it doesn't work out, then fine. At least you made a change. At least you showed your team that play matters. And if it works out, then you have a decision to make in the future. But it's no decision to make about the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles next week, because that guy has to be Jalen Hurts.
Well, Rex, you're my coach here, and so the coach has to balance losing his locker room versus potentially losing his job. How do you handle this now if you're Doug Peterson?
Well, if he loses his locker room, he's going to lose his job anyway. So, to me, look, I have not been a huge fan of Jalen Hurts. I mean, I don't think he has the NFL skill set. But right now, so I don't see him as an NFL quarterback. But right now, the way Carson Wentz is playing, he's not one either. So to me, you got no choice. What I saw as just a fan is as soon as you put Hurts in, the entire team picked up. So that was a spark like, hey, we want this guy. And then when you hear, you see this, attitude by Carson Wentz and all that, I understand. Here's my sources tell me that he's a guy that knows it all in the locker room. Well, guess what? That doesn't fly. That means people want you benched. And that's what I don't think they have a choice. They got to go with Jalen Hurts. And, so we'll see.
When you say that, it's reminiscent of the fact that this is a team that seemed to play better around Nick Foles than it did around Carson Wentz, and maybe now it makes a little sense to you.
Yeah, it makes sense to me now when I hear about this is, a know-it-all guy, because at the time I'm like, there's no comparison. Athletically, Carson Wentz is exactly what you want as a quarterback. But it's all these underlining things. If he's not coachable, if he thinks he's above the team and everything else, no wonder everybody was screaming for Nick Foles, who we all know is just a journeyman guy and a backup quarterback. But I understand it much better than I did, at the time.
So, Dan Orlovsky, you say that right now Carson Wentz is broken. Candidly, watching it, it's impossible to disagree. Can he be fixed?
Oh, absolutely. The right people can absolutely fix Carson Wentz. But, Greeny, it's going to come to trust. And I think that's when I hear those post-game press conference comments from Carson Wentz going, I didn't really know the plan. I was told that Jalen Hurts might go in for that first play and then maybe a series. That's the biggest concern I have right now, because the question becomes, how does Carson Wentz ever trust, again, the general manager, Howie Roseman, and the head coach, Doug Peterson? How was there not the conversation of, hey, Carson, right now you're not playing good enough and our offense is struggling. If that continues to be the case in this game, Jalen's going in. win. And if Jalen provides a spark, or if Jalen plays well, which he did, he's going to continue to stay in. There can't be this gray area right now for this offense. And so it's going to take time. And I said this last week, Greeny, the biggest question in this organization is, do they believe that either Doug Peterson or Carson Wentz is their future? Because if they believe it's Carson Wentz, then they need to find somebody that can rebuild the trust, because right now the trust between the player and the coach is completely broken. And the question becomes, what about 2021? That's the reality. The division's not being won, Eagles fans. What about 2021? Because if you move to Jalen Hurts for the next 4 games, I think 5 games or whatever's left, you bring into question 2021. I don't care about the money. I understand it's very difficult. But when you decide that it's time to move on, I don't know if you can bring back the guy that you benched with the same coaching staff.
It's 4 games left for the Eagles at this point, and they, in theory, because the division is so bad, are still alive in it. But as we will show you later, the Giants and some other teams are showing some signs of life. What do you think, RC? Is Carson Wentz the starting quarterback in Philly next season?
You know what? I truly don't know, Greeny. And Dan makes a great point about trust and trust being broken, or Carson Wentz being broken. What he's not mentioning is the things that Carson Wentz has done to the organization, because trust is the two-way street. No, trust is also earned. And Carson Wentz hasn't been earning the trust on the field. Listen, I don't know what goes on in the locker room. I don't know if the team tends to play better behind the backup because they like the backup as a person more. But what I do know is when Carson Wentz is on the field, he is not inspiring his players. He's not inspiring his coaches to continue to stand behind him, as Doug Peterson did so many times early on in this season. And so when you look at this team is trending down. The defense, who did play well against the Seattle Seahawks, didn't play as well yesterday against the Green Bay Packers. And so now this isn't a team that's going to make a playoff push. This is a team that has to make the point. And the point to be made is that Jalen Hurts is my quarterback right now because our quarterback isn't playing well enough. You figure out the rest of 2021 after this decision is made.
Eagles get the Saints this week, who right now are playing as well as anyone in the sport. They're a 6.5-point underdog. If they lose that game, it's probably hopelessly over. Quick final thought. Go.
Yeah, I'm just saying this, that look, I love it. Carson Wentz is looking, well, the communication. Listen, what do you want him to say? You're playing like hot garbage. I'm going to play the other cat. It's plain and simple. You only thought he was coming in for a play or a series? What, are you out of your mind? Do you not realize you were playing horribly? And so to me, he doesn't owe him anything. Put him on the bench and see you later.
Now, the contract is going to become complicated. You just saw the numbers up there. He has no money guaranteed after next season, but the dead money hit on next year if they don't keep Wentz would be devastating. Can we take a quick moment, please, on Aaron Rodgers and the performance that he put together yesterday in this game as well? Because the Eagles side of it tends to become the bigger talking point. But Dan Orlovsky, as you watch number 12 play right now, what thought goes through your mind?
There's not a quarterback and coach combination that I want going into the playoffs more outside of Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, than Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur. I said it last week, Matt LaFleur needs to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year, and I know Patrick Mahomes is balling, and he's probably the front